1973 was an exceptional year for alien contact cases. Almost daily, people were reporting encounters with strange humanoid entities. In the woods, sightings of hairy bipedal creatures also increased. One such case involved a group of kids camping on Mount Lassen in Northern California. The witness, a man named John, who was only a teenager at the time of the event, spoke of his encounter on a November 25, 2016 episode of Coast to Coast Radio. John recalled that he, along with 6 other boys who were friends from school, had hiked up to Mount Lassen in Northern California to spend the night on the volcano. After arriving and setting up camp, the boys soon got a fire going. The sky began to grow dark, so the boys huddled around the campfire talking. At one point, John recalled, one of the boys decided that he wanted to go for a walk along the trail. Given how dark it gets out there in the woods, and fearing the kid might have an accident or possibly walk right off a cliff, he sternly warned the boy against it. The boy ignored him and got up from the campfire and began to make his way into the dark woods. John became worried, and when no one offered to go after him, he decided to go and try to talk him out of his nighttime hike. After walking for a while, John managed to catch up with the other boy. He could see him further up the trail, about 50 yards away. He kept him in sight as he followed behind. Then something strange happened. All of a sudden I hear this scream of a huge animal. And it was like nothing I've ever heard before. It wasn't just one yell. It's actually kind of hard to put into words. As John attempted to figure out where the sound was coming from, he peered across a small gully and caught sight of something that shouldn't have been there. I could see it. There's this small gully, and he was standing on the other side of the gully, and this screech, it was guttural, and it was huge. You could tell it was a huge animal by how low and deep it was. The strange thing was that it sounded like it was literally right next to my ear. It was bizarre. John had a difficult time understanding what he was looking at. Again, it was a low light, but I could see the animal. I didn't know what it was. I'd never even heard of Bigfoot. So, anyhow, this animal is standing, and it's a humanoid. 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head, dark fur, and screaming. And it was close to me. It was probably only about 25 yards away. John found himself frozen in spot, almost too afraid to move. At that point, the kid he had been following had now run past him, running back to camp. He didn't say a word. He just went straight past, so I started running. I'm running back now. I'm scared. Well, what happened was, there was the other kid who took off to help me, following up behind me. I ran into him on the trail. I yelled at him. I slowed down. I told him to run. Just run. And I kept running. He goes, "Yeah, right. You guys are playing a game or whatever." But it was no game. The 3 eventually made it back to camp. Given their run-in, they felt the safest bet was to remain together at the camp instead of trying to make it down the trail in the dark. John explained that he and the other boys stayed up the entire night, sitting around the campfire too afraid to sleep. By the next morning, John began to have second thoughts about the creature he sighted the night before. He wondered if the creature he and the other boys saw was actually just a man in a suit playing some kind of sick prank. Next morning I said, "We got to get a hold of the Rangers, the Mount Lassen Rangers," and we did. And I said, I made it a point. I was one of the older people in the group. I said to the ranger, "Hey, someone was out here. He could have killed us. He could have had somebody get killed." And the ranger started whispering. It was Bigfoot. If John's story is to be believed, then we can only conclude that the ranger he spoke to was either involved in a type of prank in which a man or men dressed up in hairy costumes and ran around in the dark woods on Mount Lassen scaring kids, possibly putting lives at risk, or the ranger was acknowledging that the creature that John and the other boys encountered was actually real, that Bigfoot exists, and the rangers know it.